Glad to be here with you. Can you please tell us what's your name and what you do on Wildstar?
Yeah, so I'm Chad Moore, the lead narrative designer on Wildstar, and basically that means that I write all of the lore and develop the stories, of our zones and our characters and our dungeons and our world groups, and sort of, weave all that together into, the experience that you guys will have when you play the game.
I've noticed during gameplay today, there's a lot of things that are connected with the story. There's achievements, there's codex, there's kind of like an encyclopedia.
Mm-hmm.
There are like collectibles, and then there's quest text, there's characters. That's all your job?
So some of those things are my direct job, or me and my department. So we have the Galactic Archives, which is the Wikipedia sort of analog that sort of unlocks as you play through Wildstar. All of those entries are written by my team. There are data cubes, which are these research notes left behind by the Elden that sort of explain, what they were doing in particular areas, and then they also tell a larger story about what exactly they were doing on Nexus, and eventually will sort of give insight into what happened to the Elden and why they disappeared 1,000 years ago. Things like the quest text, that is not written by my team. Those are written by the content designers. Mm-hmm. But my team writes extensive style guides. So this is how a Draken talks. This is how a Cassian talks. These are the things they care about.
Reasons, yeah.
These are their the sort of oaths that they say when they get angry. So we spend a lot of time developing those voices. There is some VO in the game, so whenever you click on someone, they will say something. They won't say exactly what's printed on the screen in most cases, but they will say something that's contextually relevant to that. So my team writes all of that text, and then we also work with the audio department to get it recorded. Whether or not my team is directly involved in producing the actual writing, we, at the very least, sort of set the stage and make sure that the designers have a clear idea as to how these things should be written.
I noticed that you mentioned data cubes, and they're kind of a collectibles that you stumble upon in the open world, and they give you that lore reward. From our experience, there's a pretty big portion of players that like to get all the lore information that they can. They take their time and consume that kind of content. So you created several collectibles. I don't know about how many you can talk.
I can talk about some of them.
Mm-hmm. So data cubes are audio logs of Elden, and then
you have journals that are books or scrolls or data pads or basically any sort of writing that is left behind by the various groups in our game. And those will be placed, in towns, in camps, sometimes in dungeons, and their purpose is to enhance the stories that you're experiencing at the time, right? So one of the journals we have in the game is sort of there's a town in Algarok, and it's it's what we call the Chronicle of Gallo, and it's about how Gallo got its name, you know. So by the time you read that, you'll have been playing in Gallo, and you'll kind of know who the players are and what it's about. And so the idea with the journal is just that for those players that want to know a little bit more, we're going to give them these things that they can consume in order to get that. The cool thing for those players that really like lore is the scientist path, which we haven't talked a whole lot about, but we have said that the scientists are all about
Lore.
delving into the mysteries of Nexus. They are going to be rewarded for doing things like finding lore and, you know, collecting data cubes and those sorts of things. You know, not only, you know, will they get the information, but they'll actually get rewarded for finding it.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of cool, you know.
That's very cool. Let me ask you this though, mechanic-wise. When there's an explorer and they find a hidden path, then other players can use that hidden path or the buff or whatever the explorer finds. But if a scientist finds a lore item, like the journal, the data cube, and gets a reward, does that kind of translate to his group or to the area or the people in that area, or is it just like the scientist thing?
So I'd love to answer that question,
but okay.
But since we're not talking a whole lot about the scientists and the specific mechanics behind it, I can't.
Okay, that's all right.
But what I would say is, you know, with all of the paths, it was very important to us that there was always a reason to play together, right? Because all of the paths, they have different activities that they're doing. You know, we've said already on a number of occasions, you know, if you're a soldier and you go with an explorer to, you know, plant a beacon, you know, at the top of this mountain, that's one of your missions. If you decide to go with the explorer to do that and you're in his group, you know, you'll be rewarded, you know, because there may be challenges along the way that you help the explorer overcome. If you're a soldier and, you know, you plant the flag and you have a holdout event and the explorer helps you, he gets rewarded for helping. So, without getting into specifics, you know, there will be those same sorts of reward streams for both the settler and the scientist that we'll talk about more once we get into the details.
Thank you. And so, if there's people that like to collect them all, what's the final reward? Is there a final reward beside the lore?
Yeah, I mean, so
have you thought about it? Is that something in your plan?
We have, you know, we have achievements in the game. Achievements will cover a whole lot of things. You know, one of those things will be collecting, you know, a full set of journals or data cubes. You know, we're going to tie achievements to a lot of different things. So, you know, players that are really into that, who are sort of completionists and collectors, and they like to know I've gotten everything. We're going to let you know when that happens, and, you know, give you a little reward for it. So.
Pat on the back, yeah. Well, last question: how hard was it creating a completely new world? Was it an enjoyable experience? Was it what were your most fond memories about creating a world from scratch?
So I will tell you that, you know, the beginning is very hard. You know, there was a number of false starts. You know, you come up with some ideas, you try things, but I can say, you know, that when you figure it out, and you know, like for us, the moment came, you know, when we sort of, you know, the core of our story is, you know, legendary planet, everybody knows about it, no one knows where it is, and then somebody finds it, you know, like, and the idea of that is just, you know, that concept is something that resonates with just about anybody that you tell. And once we had that, and it's like, okay, that's where it begins, then, I mean, I'm not saying it was all easy, but it became much easier to figure out, like, how everything spread out from there. And, you know, I think not only from a story standpoint, from just an overall design standpoint at Carbine, that's, you know, it's kind of an idea that we adhere to, is just like, you know, start with something simple that resonates, and then, you know, go from there. If you can't get it, you know, in just a few words, you know, in describing it, then, you know, maybe it's time to go back to the drawing board. We've really, I think we've done a good job of just adhering to that philosophy. And, you know, I may be tooting my own horn, but I think, you know, Wildstar kind of, you feel that when you play the game, that we just kind of get what we're doing.
Okay, thank you.